Hello and welcome to another installment of Golondrinas Live Sessions. I'm Laura Gonzalez, the Education and Volunteer Manager here at El Rancho de las Golondrinas Living History Museum. We're located just south of Santa Fe, New Mexico in the beautiful and historic La Cienega Valley. In honor of autumn and the harvest season in New Mexico, we thought it would be interesting to talk today a little bit about the history and traditional uses of herbs and plants as remedios throughout New Mexico's history. When I put out the call for this topic, these three lovely ladies behind me answered the call. These are longtime volunteers, Julia Gomez, Michelle Montan, and Barbara Alba. Julia has been a Las Golondrinas volunteer for 20 years, and Barbara and Michelle have been with us for about 10. If you have visited Las Golondrinas, you've no doubt spent some time in our Golondrinas Placita, where they spend most of their time demonstrating the beautiful traditional art of colcha embroidery. So when I put out this call, they got to talking amongst themselves and they started sharing stories about their grandmothers and their mothers and how they use plants and herbs as home remedies, and they're very excited to share those stories with you today. Please note that this is not intended as medical advice. You should always ask your primary care provider before using or administering any home remedies. So now, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Julia, Barbara, and Michelle.
Buenas tardes. Bienvenidos al rancho de las Golondrinas. Qué bonito día es hoy. I'm going to talk to you about Cota. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this herb. Cota is an herb that it grows here in Santa Fe. It's abundant here. Barbara and Michelle and I walk every day on the Chamomile Trail, and there is a lot of Cota. This is how it grows. This is from my yard. And when you cut herbs, when you gather herbs, you cut them at the base, but do not pull the root so that they will grow back next year. This is kind of the end of the season, so you see all the flowers. All the flowers are already dead, but I brought it because I want you to be able to identify the plant. It has very, very thin, thread-like little vines. In Colorado, it's called the thread plant. But, you know, we didn't always go to the doctor. When we fell down or we hurt our elbow or we had a scrape, my daddy would say, sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. And in English, that translates, it doesn't rhyme in English, but it says, get well, get well. If you don't heal today, you will heal tomorrow. Because we didn't always have money to go to the doctor. When I had a tummy ache, my mother would give me cota to drink, make a tea. It's also called Navajo tea. And both the Native Americans and the Spanish gather the cota and they make little bundles like this. And I'll just leave it in this basket, and whenever I need to make some tea, I'll just take this little bundle, put it in some hot water, let it steep, and it has a very good taste. And it does help your tummy. If you don't like the taste, my mama always had in her kitchen some piloncillo, which is delicious, and it's a little sugar. It's raw, unprocessed sugar. And it doesn't have any molasses in it, but it looks the color of molasses. But it's very sweet, and it was always a treat to get some piloncillo. It is also used as a dye. Now, I will leave this in our dye shed, hanging from the dye shed, so that we can use it for dye. The Native Americans also used it for dye. We use it here because it makes a beautiful, striking yellow, as opposed to chamisa, which is a little duller yellow, but we also have a lot of chamisa here in New Mexico. Okay, Barbara's turn. Hi, good evening. I'm Barbara, and I am going to talk about corn silk today. Corn silk is used for urinary tract infections, bladder infections. You take the silk out of the corn. This is the corn silk here. You take the corn silk, and my mother used to dry it. We would dry it. I tried drying some, but it didn't dry very well. Then you boil it. You boil it with in hot water, and you make a tea. And this is good for your kidneys and your if you have a urinary tract infection. This is what corn silk is used for. It is a very medicinal product. And really, I think it would be safe to use now. However, you probably should talk to your doctor, or probably a woman or a curandera or somebody who knows about it. But and it tastes like sweet corn. That's what it tastes like. It's very good, and it'll help with your urinary tract infections, or if you're having any kidney pain. Or my grandmother, my mother, they all, because in those times, even when I was a child, there weren't, we couldn't really afford to go to the doctor. And so, you know, they had all these medicinal items that my mother even made it for me, I remember. So you might think about the corn silk. Okay, Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm going to talk about sage. Now, sage it has a healthy dose of vitamin K. It has mixed minerals, and it has small amounts of A, B, C, and D and E, and zinc, copper, and magnesium. Drinking a cup of tea, you can make your sage tea. Drinking 2 cups a day will lower your cholesterol. It'll raise your HDL, your LDL, and lower your HDL. It raises the bad, it raises the good, and it will lower the bad. And if you drink 2 cups a day, it'll lower your cholesterol. It is also linked to improving cancer and brain function, which I should probably be using it daily. Sage-based oil may support oral health also. It's good for your teeth. If you're having gum disease, you make a little sage tea and you use a mouth rinse. Sage leaf extract reduces blood sugar. If you have blood sugar problems, you use the extract and it'll reduce your blood sugar. Sage is a spice. We use it as a spice more than anything. It's used in roasted vegetables. We use it in stuffings. We use it in everything. But my favorite way to use sage is my smudge stick. I use my smudge stick. I use it every 3 or 4 months. I use it as a limpia. And I use it to safeguard against negativity. And what I do is I light it. And I go through the house. I go through my house. I go through the doorways. And the smoke reduces the negativity in the air. It's like energy cleansing. It's a ritual I use. And if I have any different people in the house after they leave, I make sure I do that. And I do it seasonal. I'll do it like every so many months. I'll do the sage cleansing. And the smoke, it'll attach it. It'll attach it to the negative energy, and it gets rid of it. And you sleep better after you do it. I've noticed even my dogs are calmer. And I'll do that every so often, and it really works. So I recommend this for anybody. This won't hurt anything. You burn it, you cleanse it, do your limpia. You can even do a limpia on yourself. If you're feeling negative, you can do it on yourself. Okay, so now we go with Julie.
You're going to love this one. This is hierba de la mujer mala. I had to go to Abiquiu to get anything that had any blossoms because nobody's been coming to the ranch, so things are drying up. But this is called bouncing bets, and it's also soapwort. When we were little, my mom had a big patch of bouncing bets, or she didn't know it was called hierba de la mujer mala. But they had beautiful blossoms, and when we were children, we would take the flowers and rub them and make suds because the plant has saponins and it makes suds. So I used to teach at Harvey Junior High, which is one of the oldest, which was the first junior high in Santa Fe. And I would walk home from Harvey. I lived on Gomez Road. And I would always stop by the herb store owned by Mr. Lujan. Some of you probably remember our little herb store. And Mr. Lujan was there. And he always had all these beautiful knickknacks and enamelware. And so I would look for things, and he'd say, "Do you have a boyfriend?" And I said, "No, not at the moment." And he'd say, "Well, I have the right herb for you. You will find love if you take this hierba de la mujer mala," which he had in a little container all dried up. And he said, you boil it in water, and then you let it set, and then you add it to your bath water. And do this, like maybe once a week in your bath water. And so I went home with my hierba de la mujer mala, and I boiled it up, and I put it in my bath, and before you knew it, I had found the lover of my life. And I got pregnant. That was 40 years ago. My daughter is now 38. But this is hierba de la mujer mala. It is called bouncing bets, or also belongs to the soapwort family. And as I was reading, I want to tell you that if you want to find some good stories, this is a great book by our very own Lenora Curtin, who started this beautiful ranch. There's some great stories in here.
Question for you. Do you know the origins of why that plant is called hierba de la mujer mala?
Well, it's kind of like the love potion, but I have no idea why it's called that way. In fact, I don't even know why any of these things are named that way. But I Googled bouncing bets, and it's a plant that came from England. In England, the barmaids were called bets. And so because this was soap, it was used, has saponins and it makes soap, the barmaids had to wash the bottles of ale when they were empty, and they'd put a little bit of the bouncing of the bets in there, of the herb in the bottle, and they would shake. And so the men decided to call this soap bouncing bets. So I thought that was a cute story. Bouncing bets, or hierba de la mujer mala. Okay, thank you.
Well, when I was a little girl, I used to have chronic earaches. That's probably why I can't hear now. But my mother she would slice an onion. She would slice an onion. And she would cook it. She would cook it and make it super, super hot. It would be so hot. And then she would wrap it in my dad's handkerchief. After it had cooked and it just smelled so good in the house, she would get the onion and she would wrap it, and it would be nice and hot. And she would put it on my ear. And this was supposed to make the earache or go away. I don't know that it worked, but this was a remedy for earaches. that our ancestors used, my grandmother, my mother, and it took care of the earaches. However, I don't know if it took my earaches because I can't hear now. So anyway, this is another remedy that was used that I remember using, that my mother used on me when I was a child. Yeah. So.
Now this is another one of my favorite herbs. This is manzanilla. You have the buds and the leaves here, and we would make tea with a little tea ball. We'd make tea. And manzanilla was the best here. It was widely used here in New Mexico. It tastes good. It tastes delicious. And I always would wake up with a stomach ache. I always had stomach aches every day, and my mother would make me a cup of this manzanilla tea. And it would relax me. I'd get rid of my stomach ache, and I'd be able to work, to go to school. And the only reason I did this all through my school years. I always drank manzanilla tea every morning, to find out later on when I was about 30 that I'm lactose intolerant. Well, in those days, we knew nothing about lactose intolerant, and we had milk every day. That was part of our menu. And this, I'm also going to talk about Alucema. Let me talk about Alucema also.
Michelle, we have a question for you.
Sure.
Is manzanilla made of dried rose petals?
No. It
It's a different plant. Okay.
Now, Alucema is a fragrant herb, and it's for bathing. They make lotions, they make baths. And nursing mothers, when you were nursing and your baby was congested, you would drink a cup of this, and it would ease your baby's congestion. Now, this is one herb that doesn't like me. I have to do it in very small batches, because if I use it as to bathe or in lotions, or if I get a big bunch of lavender, I get a severe headache. So you can prove allergic to these herbs. So please, please be careful and try them out first in small batches. Jules?
This is a prized possession. This is punche. Punche is tobacco. It's a wild tobacco. And it has many uses. Now, I am not promoting tobacco. I'm not promoting smoking. Smoking is very bad for you. But, it's because of all the chemicals that is in cigarettes now. But in the frontier days, in early days, it was healthy for you. Tobacco. When Christopher Columbus came, the Native Americans around Cuba were smoking this, but the Native Americans didn't use it so much for tobacco, for pleasure themselves. They used it in their spiritual ceremonies. Now, sometimes when Sean grows this, the leaves are really big, and the Spanish smoked this for pleasure. Now they first started smoking them in the pipe, and then they used corn husk to make a little cigarette. And then I found out that in 1703, the Spanish invented the paper. It came from Spain. This was given to the Spanish as a gift, and when Sean grows it, it's for medicinal purposes. It's a great insecticide. If you've worked here at the ranch in the summer, it gets really stifling hot, and we sit in the placita and we can smell the sheep. And it's not the smell that bothers us, but it's the flies. And we're always just shooing the flies away. So I take these leaves and make a little bundle, and I hang them in the windows around the placita, because it's a great insecticide. this was a great trade item because our wild tobacco had a large amount of nicotine. It had the most nicotine of all the tobacco. So everybody wanted our wild tobacco from New Mexico. It was a great trade item. It was also used for rheumatism. You could boil it and then bathe in that liquid. My dad used to put tobacco, if he had a toothache, he would chew on the tobacco and then kind of leave it where the tooth was hurting him, and it would relieve the pain. Now, Barbara's mama used to open the cigarette and take out the tobacco, and then mix it with a little bit of mentholatum. Swear. The little mentholatum, and she would take the tobacco with the mentholatum and then put it here on the temples, and that would alleviate the pain of the headache. Now this is a modern remedy, a remedio. I'm a mentholatum baby. When it was myself and my sister, and my mama, when we got sick, she would rub us down with mentholatum, and then we would just go to sleep so nice and warm. And to this day, I'm sorry, but I still cannot go to sleep without my mentholatum around my nose so that I can go to sleep smelling the mentholatum. Okay, and punche, the wild tobacco, was, you chewed it up and you placed it on a snake bite, and you held it there hoping that you would get well. And a lot of men just waited with the punche on the snake bite until somebody came with a whiskey. Okay, and I have another little tip for the fishermen. When you go fishing, Sean, when you put the worm, you put the worm on the hook, then you spit your chewing tobacco on the worm, and then that eliminates the smell that you might have something, creams on your hands. It gets rid of the human smell, and you'll catch a fish. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am going to demonstrate this. This is called Ruda, or in English it's called rue. And I found the plant here at the ranch. And you dry it and you make it into a little cigarette. And it is used for vertigo. If you have vertigo or you're dizzy, you're feeling dizzy, this will work. It'll take that dizziness away. I used to do this for my mother all the time. She was always dizzy. So I'm going to light it up, and I'm going to cure Michelle from her dizzy spells. You don't inhale. You stand up. And then you blow it in the ear too, because that vertigo is in the ear. And that's what Ruda is used for. And you can find it here at the ranch. I found some yesterday that we were here. And you can also find it at the health food store, and it's called R-U-E, Rue, or Ruda. Anyway, these are just a lot of fun remedios that we used to use when I was growing up, or my mom and my dad, or for vertigo, for headaches, for dizziness. You can use Ruda, okay? Thank you.
Now I'm going to talk about gumweed. This is a new herb for me. Juliana was nice enough to take us up to the Sierra Village, and she pointed out gumweed. Well, for some reason, it really attracted me. I thought, wow, I kind of like this. I want to talk about the gumweed. I want to talk about it. If I can find it. And I can't. And then we call gumweed hierba del buey. And it's sticky and sweet. It has like a real distinct smell to it. But if you make it as a tea, it's very bitter. And it's good for urinary tract infections, sore throats, and you can chop the flowers and the buds, and you mix it with the ponche that Julie did, ponche, and you make it like into an ointment. You can even probably mix it with mentholatum. That's a great idea. You can make it, and it's good for your kidneys. So you put it on your lower back, and it's supposed to really work. I've never tried it, and this is a new herb for me, but I don't know, something about it just really attracted me. Let's see here. Also, you can soak this in vodka or alcohol, and it is used for a dry cough. You can use it for a dry cough. And this gumweed, you use this for a dry cough, and Osha you would use for a wet cough. This is for like that dry nagging cough you have that you can't get rid of. This works. Okay, Julie?
This is punchon. The tobacco was called punche, but this is punchon, which is called mullein, and you know the leaves have the same effect as the punche. They call punchon because it's a bigger punche. Down here by the little stream, it's like 6 feet tall, and they would make a poultice out of the flowers, but they also did smoke the leaves for pleasure. They would dry them and then roll them in the corn husks. Let's see. What you would do with this is take the root and crush it, and then put it in put a little bit of oil, and then make a plaster and just rub it all over your chest, and if you had a cold, it settled in the chest. You can also, there's also a recipe for cough that you take the punchon and you boil it and put it in a little milk, sprinkle it with canela, which is cinnamon, and you take it for cough syrup. And you can also mix it with olive oil and a garlic clove, and also use it for an earache. It's good for a sleeping potion. You know, when babies are teething or you need to go to sleep, if you will make a little tea out of the root, it makes you go to sleep. And there was a story also that the Native Americans, when the babies were teething, they would take the root and cut it into little beads and make like a little necklace, and that would make the baby go to sleep. And then also the big pieces, they would dry up, and the miners used to light them and use them for torches. The leaves, the Spanish used to take the leaves and then soak them in mula blanca, which is a local corn whiskey. And then they would smoke it, and that was really good. Okay, here's my mask.
I'm going to talk about Osha. This is the Osha root. It has a wonderful, wonderful fragrance. And Osha perhaps is the most native herb to New Mexico. And you can only get it at certain altitudes. However, it's becoming really hard to find anymore. It's getting very rare. And Osha is good for sore throats, for bronchial inflammation. It can be used as a disinfectant or a mouthwash. A long time ago, people had bad gums or their teeth were falling out, and they would chew on the root, and it would clean out their gums, and it would strengthen their teeth. And also it has been used to ward off snakes and spiders. The tea is excellent. You boil the root, and it's excellent for indigestion. So, Osha just smells wonderful, and it's also good for, like I said, bronchial infections. You can buy a cough syrup. You can buy an Osha cough syrup at your health food store, and believe it or not, it actually works to clear the phlegm from your coughs. Thank you.
My last will be garlic. Garlic, here in New Mexico, we use garlic for everything. It lowers your blood pressure, it boosts your immune system, it improves your cholesterol, and it may help dementia and Alzheimer's. It helps to detoxify metals in your body. We used to make it as a tea. When I would feel like I'm catching a cold, I make a strong tea out of garlic, and I'll drink it, and it kind of seems like I don't get the cold. And also, back in the day when they thought your dog had rabies, they would mash it in their food, and that would help the dogs. Yeah, it would help the dog, that dog with the rabies. So then you can use this, a fresh poultice of this also works on snake bites. You can use it for snake bites. And my grandma Baca, would have this over her door to keep out the evil spirits. And I truly believe that works, and maybe that's where I get it's from my grandmother. I believe in it. So this is what I have. If you come to my house and you see this over my door, come on in, because this will keep away the evil spirits, and you will be saved.
Okay, another remedy my mother had was potato. Let me see, there's my knife. The potato was used to, if you had a fever, it would take the fever away, or the potato would draw it out. Or if you had a headache, the potato, some people soak it in vinegar. Some people would soak it in vinegar, but I don't ever remember my mom doing that. So I'm just going to...
Ay, me duele la cabeza.
See, here comes a lady. Here comes a lady with a headache. So we're gonna put potatoes on her head.
Ay, me duele la cabeza.
And then we would just tie a scarf or a handkerchief around the poor lady with a headache, and it would take the headache away, or the fever. So this is another nice remedy if somebody has a headache. So that's my last herb.
And our mothers, Julie and our mothers would soak it in vinegar, and Julie's brothers would go by and steal the potatoes and eat them.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, we're done.
All right, ladies. Do we have any questions or comments from our wonderful Facebook audience. If anybody has stories that they want to share, a lot of you out there with us, no doubt, especially if you're New Mexican, you probably have stories of your own. Maybe some of these remedios you still use today. I know personally, I resonate with some of this because I grew up with my grandparents here in New Mexico, and they used a lot of remedios on me, and I still use those to this day. So in New Mexico in the past, it was a necessary part of life. You know, the Western medicine wasn't available, and this is what they had, and they got really creative with it. Well, boy, I really enjoyed this presentation. I hope our viewers did too. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the comments. I'd love to. Oh, we have a question coming in. One more time, please. Oh, yes. Is it pretty simple to find a lot of these herbs?
Yes.
Yes, most of them are here at the ranch.
They are local here at the ranch.
Yes.
Yes.
The only one that we couldn't find was the Osha.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned Osha's a little harder to
It
find.
grows at 6,000 to 7,000 feet.
And it does smell lovely, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the book, can we show this book again?
Yes.
By the way, this is something that we usually carry in our gift shop here at Las Golondrinas, Healing Herbs of the Upper Rio Grande. And it's by Miss Leonora Curtin. And actually, I'd like to take an opportunity, if he doesn't mind, I'd like to get Sean Palahimo up here with us for an introduction. You heard these ladies mention Sean's name a couple of times in regards to the ranch and helping us pick some of these herbs. Sean, why don't you come on back here and say hi to everybody for us? This is Sean Palahimo. He is our Director of Operations and Assistant Director, and he's got a really unique tie to this book, actually, in that it was his great-grandmother.
Great. Thank you, ladies, so much for all of the remedio advice with the Osha, the yerba buena.
Yeah,
and-
we ran out of time. We
ran
have
out-
so many
yeah.
more.
We had
Yeah, and as Laura mentioned, this was actually my great-grandmother who wrote this book. My grandmother was a junior. My grandmother was Leonora Curtin Palahimo. Very confusing growing up, having two Leonora Curtins as your grandma and great-grandma. We always just called them 1 and 2. This was written by 1. The Botanical Gardens Wetland Preserve is also named Leonora Curtin Wetland Preserve for that reason. Another remedio that is found on the wetlands is yerba mansa. We didn't have time to talk about yerba mansa, which is another respiratory. The roots can be used for respiratory tea, as well as the leaves can be dried and used for respiratory tea. You heard my name referenced, which is why Laura decided to bring me in. As growing the punche, I'm the museum's assistant director, director of operations. I take care of the agricultural fields along with my team of employees and maintenance staff, and Juliana Lopez, our accountant and agricultural basically guru. She knows so much about these plants and these herbs, these flower gardens. I mean, she could go on for hours as well. So that's what I have to say. Thank you all so much, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Miss Laura.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for being a brave soul and coming up on stage with us here. I'd also like to give a shout out to the man behind the camera that none of you get to see, Vic Macias. Yes, we couldn't do any of this without him. As a lot of you know, this is the first round of videos for us. Usually we're here live. These ladies are so much fun. You can tell they're the best of friends. They have a great time when they're out here. They had a great time today. We had a great time listening to your stories and hearing about all of these things. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, Vic, for helping us put these videos. And thank you all to our wonderful audience for your continued support of us, for tuning in with us and spending some time on your Friday afternoon. I also want to remind everybody out there that while we're still not able to host any of our normal events this year. We lost most of our season, but we are open until the 30th of October, limited capacity. You have to get a reserved ticket. That's all on our website, golondrinas.org. It's got all the information. You're able to purchase tickets right on the website. We hope that you get a chance to come out this month and see us and do a little leaf peeping because it's starting to get really beautiful out here. And otherwise, we'll see you again soon with these other live videos. Also wanted to point out, Sean and I have some new fashionable face wear here. We have some new Golondrinas masks available. We're still working them on getting them to the website, but for now, if you go to our website, send us an email, give us a call, mail@golondrinas.org, or give us a call. All the information's on our website. We'll get you hooked up with a new mask. So, all right, everybody, check back with us on our Facebook, on our Instagram at SF Golondrinas for more information on the next Golondrinas live session. Stay safe out there and enjoy these beautiful autumn days. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.